Burr, 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 burr. Tonto, jump on it. Jump. You can picture it, I'm sure, by just hearing what I did.
Sup, nerds? It's basketball. Welcome to Horse, a basketball podcast about everything except for the wins and losses. My name is Mike Schubert, and I'm joined by my trusted co-host, the wearing a pink shirt to me wearing the exact same pink shirt because we have a softball playoff game in a couple of hours. It's Adam Amawala. Adam, how's it going?
It's going well. Let's play two.
I would love it. Yes, if we win game one, we stay and we play a second game, and that would be very, very fun. Our team wants to defend their title, and I would love to do that. Softball reference early in the pod for this very obviously basketball podcast.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I do feel personally responsible for getting you involved in New York softball. You're welcome. Mm-hmm. And you and I pretty much hit back-to-back every game, which I love. Mm-hmm. We've even switched batting gloves. What a time.
It's truly, I forget what that old story is, like where the husband sells his watch to buy his wife a hairbrush, and the wife sells her hair to buy a watch chain for the husband. We had the happier version of that where I got a really bad blister in one game, so I bought batting gloves for myself, but I bought larges because the size guide, which I measured in everything. I measured my hand with the measuring tape and all that. It said I was going to be a large. I didn't think that would make sense because I have long hands, but like surgeon fingers, despite me being the queasiest person that I know. I can't even watch Grey's Anatomy without being grossed out. So I have long fingers, not big hands though, or I guess not thick hands. Regardless, my larges were way too big. You had mediums that are way too small. We traded gloves. Here we are.
Here we are. And you know what? We're both raking, which is a baseball term for hitting the ball well.
Yes. Now, enough not basketball talk. Let's talk about basketball. But before we can talk about basketball, let's center ourselves in the Teal Memorial locker room. Teal did chime in on Twitter to say that she's doing great.
Can confirm Teal doing great.
Love to hear it. You know what else you love to hear?
Probably that we have some new patrons.
That is true. We have new patrons. Shout out to our new patrons, Brian Hemp and Ollie Moss. And shout out to our new producer level patron, Allison DeGana, a.k.a. Hi Trish. Don't know who Trish is.
Well, would you like to hear why?
Yes, please.
Allison
let me
went
know.
with Hi Trish. All right, so to quote Allison, and thank you again for joining as a producer level patron, if you wanted context, which maybe you don't, but here it is anyways, we absolutely do, and thank you so much for providing it. Mm-hmm. My old coworker Trish insisted I start listening to Horse when I decided last year to be more than a fair weather fan, and we now talk about the show all the time, especially every new episode that comes out. I just started a new job, so I can no longer walk up to Trish's desk to talk about the show, but I think it would be funny to give her a little shout out if it's cool with you guys. It absolutely is, and hi, Trish.
Hi, Trish. Indeed, I look forward to saying hello to you in many episodes to come.
Agreed.
You know who else I would like to say hello to, and I would like all of the listeners to say hello to?
Probably all of our producer-level patrons.
It is all of our producer-level patrons. Polly Burge, Kendra Hadley, Salvatore Testa, Trust the Process, Siobhan Ellsbury, He Sells Seashells, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Long-Suffering Timberwolves Fan, Roast Beef Debris, Kay the Conqueror, Basketball is Life 2, Michaela Loves Allison, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Borgelli, Weird Questions, Mitch Chrysler, Wardell Curry, the second for 3.
Bang.
Nicole Arsenal, Lobster Biscuit, and now hi Trish.
Yes, and shout out to Twitter user Matt at mstetz, STETZ 714 for the suggestion on Wardell Curry the second for 3.
Yes, Steph's full legal name, which is a nice name.
It is a nice name. He was once referred to as that name during a press conference and was a bit thrown, understandably. We'll find the link and share it.
Very, very fun. Very fun. You know what also is very fun?
Probably getting sponsored, my dude.
Getting sponsored, and getting sponsored by companies that do good things is always the best. And that is the case for this episode's sponsor, which is Tab for a Cause. A very simple thing. It is a browser extension. You add it to your browser. You go to tabforacause.org/horse. Couple clicks, you've got it set up. Every time you open a tab, you get a heart. When you get a bunch of hearts, you can then pick what charity the hearts go to, and then Tab for a Cause donates money to that charity.
Well, I think that sounds pretty awesome.
It is awesome. And also, it's not just a charity raising thing. It's a nice thing for your browser because every time you open a new tab, you get a very pretty picture. They change them up every day or so. You can add widgets and stuff to the homepage so it can be functional. You'll see a couple little ads in the corner, but those ads are what raise money for charity. It's fantastic. It is truly the easiest way to raise money for charity. Can't recommend it enough. I've been using it for years, and it's a nice way for something you're already going to do. Why not make it productive? Go to tabforacause.org. That's tabforacause.org/horse. Get it installed and start raising money for charity in a very, very simple way.
Mike, let me ask you a question and be honest. If you look at your browser right now, how many tabs you got open?
Only 2.
What the hell? What restraint?
I am not a tab monster. I am a inbox monster where I usually leave things left unread for long periods of time.
That's
but no,
fair.
rather than have tabs up, because usually since I'm doing stuff on my computer, I don't like to have it all there, and I don't like to have stuff running in the background, taking up space or battery or whatever. I'm more of a, if I need to, I'll make a notes app with links in it if I really need to revisit something.
That's
or
smart.
I used to be a bookmark guy more in college, but then that got out of hand. But yeah, I'm not a big tab monster.
Right now I have 13 and it's making me anxious, but part of that is because we're recording an episode and I have like a bunch of things queued up. I think usually I try to keep it to single digits. I think that's reasonable, but nevertheless, however many tabs you have, Tab for a Cause is a good place to be.
The other thing, just a life recommendation for folks that I could say, if you have multiple browsers, I use Chrome for fun stuff, and then I use Brave for work stuff. So that way I kind of have it separate where I can just click an app and then, oh, here are all the work tabs, and then here's all the fun tabs. That also helps me like not go do the fun stuff when I'm supposed to be working. You know, I have to, if I'm going to check Twitter, I have to fire up Chrome, and it really is like, hey, are you really not working to do it? Is this that important?
Are these the kind of fun tabs that you don't tell Kelly about, or what are we talking about here?
I don't have any of those fun tabs at all. I'm a good boy and a good husband. So before we continue into Full Court Press, we're going to do our NB Q&A. Reminder that each episode we answer a question. If you're a patron, we guarantee get to your question. Otherwise, we find one from social media. This one comes from Twitter. This is from DJ Unicardo, who asks us, since there's a lot of love for anime in the NBA, because Zion Williamson recently attributed his current situation to Naruto, which is a show that I know is very good that I have not watched, but that was just very funny that an NBA athlete would make an anime reference in a press conference. They said, since there's a lot of love for anime in the NBA, how about an episode about anime basketball? And I am not very well versed in anime at all, but I do know there are some anime basketball shows out there. So it could be something to dive into for the future. We will keep it in the back pocket of potential things to do episodes about.
Yeah, anime is one of those things that I don't have any opinions about either direction. I just have no real frame of reference for it at all. Like I could not know less about anime.
Yeah, for me, it's not that I'm anti-anime. I just don't watch a lot of TV in general. And if I am going to take time to watch TV, I usually will watch sports.
Right.
I'm not a huge TV watcher. I usually wait till things get an alarmingly high amount of Emmy nominations, and then I go, oh, maybe I'll check out Breaking Bad.
Right. I don't know about you, but I've never locked into cartoons of any sort. And I know that there are some that are great. Like people love Bob's Burgers, and obviously back in the day, people would love Family Guy and The Simpsons and BoJack Horseman and all these, but I've never watched cartoons. Even as a kid, I would watch maybe like Tom and Jerry, but it was just never my thing. I don't know why that is.
You know, to each their own. There's some really good ones out there. I would say don't knock it till you try it, but also don't try it if you don't feel like it. You do you. I'm not your mom. No one's your mom except for Deb.
Shout out Deb.
Shout out Deb.
We know she's listening.
We know. And now we can get into Full Court Press. Get it like the news. Lots of fun news going on. First things first, we're recording this on August 23rd, meaning the WNBA playoffs are in full swing, and they have been very fun, and I very much enjoyed watching them, especially because the Seattle Storm are playing quite well, and I am very invested in them potentially winning in Sue Bird's final year, which would be really freaking cool. It's been exciting. I'm loving watching the games. I'm loving them getting coverage on ESPN and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that will continue. I'm not as big of a fan as when they get bumped for the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to watch 12-year-olds be bad at baseball on ESPN. Put that on ESPN too, and put the WNBA playoffs on ESPN. What are we doing? I get like the excitement of Little League baseball, but they're really bad. They're really bad at baseball. they're not good.
They're really good for 12-year-olds. Can we say that?
Yeah, of course we can. But that is really putting a big caveat on the whole thing.
Yes, that's true. But as we record this on Tuesday, August 23rd, the Chicago Sky and New York Liberty play a decisive Game 3 tonight in New York. And let's just start with that if we can. So the Liberty won Game 1, 98-91, which is a very high-scoring game. And then in Game 2, cue the Cat Williams, you shouldn't have been talking shit, because the Sky won 100-62.
Yeah, it got ugly very quick.
Yikes.
By the end of the first quarter, it was not a contest anymore. It was like a 20 or 30 point lead before halftime. It was obnoxious.
Yep. But to your point, so the Storm have already advanced, which is, I'm sure you're quite happy about. Were you able to watch both games?
I was able to watch both games. Thankfully, me now having League Pass, I can watch after the fact, which is really nice because then it skips all the commercials. Ooh. So it is a lot quicker to watch the games. So yes, Storm won 2-0 against the Mystics. This was a fun year because they changed the format up this year, where now every first round matchup is a best of 3 series. Before, they had single game elimination stuff and bye rounds and all that. I appreciate that they just made it less confusing. The first round, everything's best of 3. The second round, everything's best of 5, and then the finals are best of 5. Nice, easy peasy. 8 teams make it, which is reminiscent of the NBA playoffs, where there's 8 teams from each conference. So I think this playoff structure makes more sense, because truly, even as someone that followed the WNBA, I would have to have the playoff guide up when we would talk about it in last year's playoffs, because it's like, oh, right, they have a bye, and then these teams are playing a one-game elimination. One-game elimination stuff for a sport that has a true regular season, unlike March Madness, where it's weird and there's conferences and all that. Single elimination doesn't make sense for the WNBA, so I'm glad that they have left it behind. There's enough drama in a 3-game series.
But you're not opposed to the play-in format in the NBA, right?
No, I like the play-in in the NBA, especially because it helps make tanking less of a concern. And right. I think that is fun. And it's structured in a way where if you're the higher seed, you have more odds and stuff like that. So I think the play-in tournament works. But I think just for the WNBA, because they just have regular playoffs, I'm glad that they got rid of the single game thing. Because, yeah, what would have happened if the Sky and the Liberty played, and the Liberty, who are the 7th seed, just won this random game against the Sky, who are a much better team, and now we don't get to watch Candace Parker in the playoffs? Right. So I think a 3-game series still has enough drama where when the Liberty won Game 1, there's still a lot of pressure. But now if the Sky come back to win back-to-back games, that's also very fun. Right. So I think a 3-game set is the right level of drama for a first round, where an upset is still possible, but not a ridiculously high percentage chance.
I think maybe 3, 5, and 7 would be cool. Like 3 in the first round, 5 in the semifinals, and then best of 7 for the WNBA finals.
That's what I really, really hope they get to. And I think they will, because they're adding more regular season games. This playoff structure adds more playoff games. I think that we could very well see next year it being 3, 5, 7, which would be fun. I think that would be really, really cool.
Nice.
So here's where it currently stands on August 23rd. The Aces beat the Mercury 2-0, and the Storm beat the Mystics 2-0. So now those two teams, my favorite team and Salvatore Testa's favorite team, are in the semifinals. We've already placed a bet where whoever's team wins, I'm going to be seeing him in October. Whoever's team wins, they don't have to cook dinner. It's kind of like our bet. The loser will have to cook dinner for the other person.
Which reminds me, I have to make you wear some Bulls stuff at some point.
Yes, you totally do. I think that's going to be a very fun series to watch. The first game is already in the past, but definitely everyone watch the rest of the games, because the Aces are the top offense in the league and then a middle of the pack defense, and then the Storm are the reverse, the top defense in the league and then the middle of the pack offense. So I think it's just going to make for a really interesting dynamic on both ends. So that'll be fun. On the other side of things, these games will be complete, but at least at the time of recording, the Sky and the Liberty are tied 1-1, and the Connecticut Sun and the Dallas Wings are tied 1-1. Now, I think that the Sky are in good shape to win. I don't want to jinx them, but the Sky are a very, very good team. So I feel like they'll be okay. And I was surprised that the Dallas Wings beat the Sun in this series, because the Sun are also a very good team, but the Wings are young and fun. I was recommending this to my friend. If someone's getting into the WNBA now and they have no stake in it, the Dallas Wings are a fun team. They kind of did a big trade away a bunch of people for a rebuild, and now those players are starting to take shape. It's a really fun time to get in. Yeah. Kind of like where the Grizzlies were maybe a year ago in the NBA, where you got a bunch of fun young people, let's get in before they're powerhouses.
Right.
I wouldn't be too surprised if the Wings pull the upset. They've really shown out in the playoffs. I was surprised because you have more inexperienced players. They might be a bit more shook, whereas the Sun have a lot of veterans, but they held their own Both those games are going to be fun. We'll see what the series ends up being. But man, if the Storm win in Sue's final year, like that's just documentary material. That's just going to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
I would really, really love that.
One thing that's interesting about the first round as well in the WNBA, and I assume it has everything to do with travel, is that the team with the better record, the higher seeded team, gets the first 2 games at home, but then the other team gets game 3 if it goes there. So for the Sky and the Liberty, the Sky were the 2 seed, the Liberty are the 7 seed. The first 2 games were in Chicago. They split them. So now all of a sudden Chicago has to go and win a decisive game 3 on the road, which I feel like is kind of an interesting element of all this.
Yeah, it's definitely travel because since the WNBA is so small, the playoffs are not broken up by conference. The regular season, they have conferences, so that helps the travel schedule make a little bit more sense. But when you get to the playoffs, it's just straight seeding. So yeah, you have Chicago versus New York, Connecticut versus Dallas, and then you had Seattle versus Washington, D.C. You've got some pretty spread out teams. So thankfully it was a travel thing. And I think even talking about our last episode, reminding us of that, I think one of the teams had a canceled flight and then they chartered a private flight for them to get around the cancellation.
Well, there you go.
So there you go.
Already making progress.
So the playoffs are fun. I'm excited to see how they go. Can't recommend enough for everyone to watch them. And I mean, we could have, because of the way the brackets work out, we could have a Storm and Sky finals, which would be really fun for us.
That would be very fun. And we would certainly have to watch at least one of those games together.
We definitely will. And that could be a great opportunity for me to have to wear Chicago stuff, especially if I'm rooting against a Chicago team. I feel like that would be a good embarrassing time to wear a Bull shirt.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good call.
So with that complete, you want to tell us a little bit about grumpy boy Kevin Durant now that things have finally settled after a very strange couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, essentially the news is that there's no news, which is that Kevin Durant doesn't want to be in Brooklyn, but has more or less accepted the fact that he will be. And that's where we stand. There was also an interesting exchange with Patrick Beverley. You want to tell people about that?
Right. So Patrick Beverley, and I don't think that he is wrong, but I also think what Kevin Durant did in reply is funny. Patrick Beverley tweeted, because now the dust has settled, where basically Kevin Durant put in a trade request at the end of June. There was no trades out there, so now he and the Nets have recommitted to him staying put and trying to make the best of the situation. So Patrick Beverley tweeted, "Y'all can sit and don't say nothing, but that ain't cool. It's dudes with families out here who haven't got a job because of this KD shit, and to be on and off ain't cool. Blessing gang, prayer emoji, basketball emoji." I think he makes a good point because you'll see this a lot in the NBA. You kind of need star players to settle before some of the smaller contracts can get put into place.
Right.
Because look at the Nets, for example. If the Nets keep Kevin Durant, they are going to try to win the title. And that would inform their decisions about what types of players they want to fill out the roster with. They would want experienced veterans that they can pay a little bit less, who are taking more of a pay cut so that they can play on a contending team. And that makes sense for both parties. On the reverse, if they don't have Kevin Durant, they want to fill those roster spots with young guys that they're kind of taking a big swing on because, hey, if this guy pans out, cool. And now he's only 22 and he's on our team and we found a diamond in the rough and he's a part of our future. When there are these big players, top all-star, superstar guys that haven't settled where they're going to be, a lot of people are in contract limbo during the offseason. So I think that Patrick Beverley is correct. Now, what Kevin Durant did was he quote tweeted it and then put hashtag blame KD in all caps. And like, it is your fault, Kevin. Like, it's your fault. You are under contract for 4 more years and then you requested a trade. This is your fault. I'm sorry. Sometimes people blame you for stuff that isn't fair. I think Patrick Beverley is well within his rights to say that you have caused a shakeup for the market in free agency. But it's still kind of funny that Kevin Durant tweeted this.
Yes, as we have highlighted before on Horse, Kevin Durant is an elite level tweeter. There's no doubt about it. But I do have to say, recording this on a Tuesday before a Monday episode drop, it would be the single most Horse thing possible for the news to come out that Kevin Durant wasn't going anywhere. And then as soon as we hit stop on our recordings, Kevin Durant gets traded to the Lakers.
Who's to say? Who's to say? Final note that we've got here for Full Court Press, the NBA schedule has been released. There are some spicy games happening. The Knicks are playing on Christmas. I believe the Warriors and the Grizzlies are playing each other on Christmas, which continues their beef that they had starting in the playoffs and continuing through the offseason. So there's some spicy stuff out there, and you can also just kind of see what's on the marquee matchups throughout the year. It's going to be fun.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little salty about the Knicks getting a Christmas game again and the Bulls not getting a game now that they're actually like a competitive, good team again. It kind of bothers me. I get it. I know that the Knicks are a big market team, but it's a little frustrating. But I will say the Bulls going into last year, and rightfully so, nobody thought they were going to be any good. I think they literally had like one game on TNT. And this season, the Bulls, I think, have 14 games that are on national TV, which is nice. So at least there's that.
I understand why they have to do this for scheduling purposes, and they do sometimes change out some of the games towards the end of the year if a team that was predicted to be really good ends up being really bad or having a key injury, and they do some flex game kind of things. But it almost feels like they should only set half of the TV schedule at a time and then reassess a couple months into the year.
Yes.
I don't think that would ever actually work, but yeah, the national TV thing, it's something people always get all up in arms about it because certain teams get preference, but like at the end of the day, more people are going to tune in to the Knicks game, even if the Knicks are bad on Christmas, than they will if it's like a young, exciting team. Like if the Timberwolves turn out to be really good. Yeah, they made the Rudy Gobert trade. Cool, the Timberwolves. There's just more people that are going to watch it if it's on prime time and it's the Knicks versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like, yes, it's not fair, but also like it does make sense if you think about it for more than 4 seconds.
I get that, but I'm not talking about the Timberwolves. I'm talking about the Bulls, who are also a big market team.
Right. I am honestly surprised the Chicago Bulls don't have a Christmas game. That feels silly to me.
Yeah. But also, as it pertains to our favorite teams, in kind of a scheduling oddity, the Bulls and Knicks, they only play each other 3 times. And all 3 of those games are between December 14th and December 23rd.
Whoa.
I don't know that I've ever seen this before. The Bulls and Knicks play back-to-back games both in Chicago. Like sometimes they'll do the home and home where it's like one in Chicago and then one in New York. But on Wednesday, December 14th and Friday, December 16th, the Knicks play at the United Center 2 games in a row, which is very interesting. And then the only time the Bulls are at the Garden this year is Friday, December 23rd. Who knows if we'll be around? That's like right before Christmas. So I don't know. It would be fun if we could go since we didn't get to end up going together last year. But yeah, kind of a weird oddity of that matchup for this year.
That is unfortunate. I will probably be in Texas for the holidays for all 3 of those games, visiting my family. So,
well, you can go to a Rockets game.
I can, yeah. And I've done that over the holidays before. One of my fondest memories is going to a Rockets New Year's Eve game with my parents soon after I turned 21.
Ah, the old pregame at the game.
I mean, it was fun. We went to the game. I was like fresh out of college. I may have talked about this on the podcast, but I was like 23, I think. Went to the game, had some beers, hung out, and then I went from there to a New Year's Eve party in downtown Houston because I was living in Houston working as an engineer at the time. And I remember leaving from the stadium, driving to hang out with my friends, and I was like, oh, my parents are just my friends now.
Yes.
Cool.
You know, we have talked about it because I believe there's an episode title. It might have been the one with our dads.
Yeah, that was My Parents Are Just My Friends Now.
My Parents Are Just My Friends Now, yeah.
So yeah, I've done it. Maybe we'll do it. But what I would hope then, if the Knicks and the Bulls could meet each other in the playoffs, then we could go to a playoff Knicks Bulls game. And that could be really, really fun.
I will start saving money now.
We will invest.
Exactly.
And that wraps up Full Court Press. We can get into your 3-on-3.
1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. 3-on-3.
Let's do it. So, Mike Schubert, I proudly present a 3-on-3 that truly captures the ethos of Horse, a basketball podcast that is kind of about basketball. Today, I have for you the 3 funniest and 3 sexiest referee hand signals.
Whoa! This is good. I like this. I appreciate this because though this is visual, this will be something that now anytime someone watches a game after this, they can look for it. And now we can all laugh at something that's not supposed to be sexual, but you've deemed sexual. This is great. A+. I'm already on board.
Thank you. Now, as you alluded to, this is admittedly somewhat of a challenge given that we are doing this via an audio medium. And we will certainly be posting visual aids on the website page at horsehoops.com. But until then, I will do my very best to paint a picture with words. If it's all right with you, I will start with the funny ones and end on the sexy ones.
Let's go.
All right, before I even begin, I just have to mention that one of the videos I used for research was called Basketball Referee Penalties and Signals, How to Officiate Basketball by Bob Schofield. And the intro music is quite possibly the single most 1990s vibe ever, right down to the dramatic whooshing transition sound. Here it is. Bob then begins to teach his students, and let me be the first to say that Bob is absolutely dripping with charisma.
Now I'm going to show you some of the basic hand signals and mechanic signals that we have.
It was actually a very helpful and informative video, but I couldn't stop laughing. Anyway, let's get started with the list of funny hand signals. At number 3, we have the technical foul, an iconic referee hand signal that involves using one's hands to form a letter T, which of course stands for technical. Now, this is done by holding one hand horizontally and emphatically motioning upward with your other hand vertically to form a T. This gesture can be quite emphatic and is most often seen from the POV of Draymond Green. It's particularly satisfying and funny when it's done right in someone's face, and we will share a link to a House of Highlights YouTube video called NBA Funniest Technical Fouls and Ejections of All Time, including an incident where Lance Stevenson was teed up for taunting after pantomiming strumming a guitar. What a time. Naturally, though, everyone's favorite ejection of all time was when notably terrible referee Joey Crawford ejected Tim Duncan for laughing while he was on the bench. And yes, we will absolutely put a link to that as well. Do you have any favorite technicals or ejections that you can remember?
Yes, and I think we talked about this in a very old episode, of course, but there's a time where Rasheed Wallace got ejected for trying to intimidate a referee by just giving him a cold, dead-eye stare, just staring them in the face.
Amazing.
And I believe when this referee ejects them, and they're mic'd up, so the YouTube video, if it's not in this compilation, exists, goes, whack, you're gone. It's great.
I thought you were going to reference the Rasheed Wallace ball don't lie incident, which is also pretty great. So in that scenario, Rasheed Wallace got called for a foul. I think he got an initial technical for complaining about the call. Then whoever he fouled went to the free throw line, missed the free throw, which in Rasheed Wallace's mind was some sort of justice. He screamed, "Ball don't lie," and immediately got ejected.
Yep, quality stuff. But hey, ball don't lie.
It don't.
And he was just speaking the truth.
And you know what else don't lie? Hips. All right, at number 2, we have the double dribble hand signal, in which the referee will pantomime dribbling a basketball with 2 hands. Now, the official definition of a double dribble, and I quote, occurs when a player ends their dribble by catching or causing the ball to come to rest in one or both hands, and then dribbles it again with one hand, or when a player touches it before the ball hits the ground, end quote. The way this is indicated amounts to the referee looking kind of like Stanley from The Office when he plays basketball and it becomes clear that he has no idea how to actually play. It also looks kind of like when cats do that thing where it looks like they're making biscuits, just like alternating which paw they're pressing down. It's pretty great.
It's very doggy paddle motion. What I think is very fun about this call is that it mimics what the person actually did, and it kind of looks like the referee's making fun of the player.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's exactly what it looks like. Finally, the number one funniest referee hand signal, and in my opinion, it's not even particularly close, is the 24-second violation, which occurs when a team doesn't get a shot off within the 24 seconds given to them in an NBA game. For reasons that are not clear, the official way to indicate this is to blow the whistle and then beat the shit out of yourself. More specifically, the ref will use their palm to furiously tap on their head, much like Lenny from Of Mice and Men trying to comfort a toddler too hard. It's absolutely absurd, and I can't get enough of it, and I hope it never changes.
What's also strange about it is that players now, when they dunk on someone's head, will do a similar motion where they tap the top of their head to signify, I yammed it on your head. And it's always very confusing to me, either or, because if a player does it, then I'll say, wait, why are they saying 24-second shot clock violation? Or the reverse, if a referee does it, I'll be like, why is he saying on your head? It's just this weird, I don't associate the motion with either fully, so anytime it happens, it confuses me. And yeah, why would that be 24? It's so strange.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes it looks like they're hitting their own head 24 times. Like it doesn't, so many of the other hand signals make logical sense because you're basically demonstrating what the person did. In this case, it has nothing to do with anything, and it's very funny.
Yeah, it's a very interesting motion indeed.
And I will, of course, have 2 more funny ones in my extended 5-on-5 on the Patreon, which you can join at patreon.com/horsehoops. But let's go ahead and move on to the sexiest hand signals, shall we? At number 3 on our list, we have the blocking foul, which can best be described as the first move in the famous Carlton from Fresh Prince Apache dance. So if you don't know what that means, it's the one that's like, burr, 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 burn, burn, Tonto, jump on it, jump. You can picture it, I'm sure, by just hearing what I did. So what I mean is the referee puts their hands on their hips and, depending on how saucy that particular ref is, may or may not get their hips involved, which, again, will not lie.
Yeah, it's a good motion. Yeah, I never really considered it to be a sexy one, but it is a very forceful one. And there is a very famous Joey Crawford one, which we'll have to link, where he does it while moving, like running down the court, thrusting.
Yeah, he dances down the court. In doing research for this, the vast majority of clips I saw were all Joey Crawford.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that guy was a bad referee and really liked to ham it up. He really liked to make himself be known, which is never a good sign. The best referee is one that you don't take notice of. That's why we never know any of the good referees by name. We only know the bad ones by name.
Right. He is, to make another baseball reference, as we always do, he is basketball's Joe West. He's someone who just always involved himself. I guess Angel Hernandez would be a good one, too.
Yep.
Now that Joe West has retired. Thank God.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. At number 2, we have the traveling violation, which you likely have never seen before if you only watch the NBA. Theoretically, a travel occurs when you take more than 2 steps without dribbling the ball, or more than 5 if you're LeBron James doing your patented crab dribble. This motion involves the referee turning both of their arms in a circular motion around one another in a very groovy way that looks a bit like the 1970s style dances seen most prominently in Austin Powers in Goldmember. It looks unmistakably like something that could have been involved in the electric slide when you're moving back and forth on the Boogey-Oogey-Oogey part before you change directions. To be as clear as I possibly can be describing something on a podcast, the traveling violation requires the ref to have both arms placed horizontally in front of them and rotate them around each other, generally at least 2 or 3 times, sometimes more depending on how egregious the foul is. And I would also submit, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that the travel motion is the most common hand signal to see random fans doing in a crowd during the game when they want that call to be made, but it wasn't.
I agree with you that fans love to do the travel. People love to do it in pickup basketball. And when I was courtside for the Storm Mercury game to see Subert and Diana Taurasi play, the people next to us were very nice. The dude's wife had no concept of what a travel was, and she was yelling all the time that people were traveling. She was yelling a lot of things at the referees, and she did not understand the fundamental rules of basketball, and it honestly bugged me a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you can be loud, but you can't be loud and wrong. And that's what she was.
Yeah, it's definitely the equivalent of sitting like in the upper deck at a baseball game, hundreds of feet from home plate, and the umpire makes a call, and someone's like, "Where was that?" It's like, I don't know, much closer to him than you.
Yeah, I definitely made fun of people in St. Louis for doing that. Cardinals fans loved to complain, as I learned when I went to watch Yankees-Cardinals games with Johnny. And I would always call people and be like, "Oh yeah, you did have a really good angle on that one. You're right. He should have called that a strike." Like, we're behind third base and 500 feet in the air. Like, what are you doing?
Ah, yes, St. Louis. When I visited there, I saw multiple people wearing a shirt that said, "I stand for the anthem, I kneel for the cross." What a place to be.
Yeah.
I know some good Cardinals fans, I'm just saying, but, you know, not my favorite group of people. All right.
But traveling is fun. It's very hustle-esque. The travel
Yes.
motion looks like you're doing the hustle, which is cool.
Do the travel. Do.
Yeah. And it can really, as you said, it can get spiced up if it's a really intense one, which is very fun.
Absolutely. All right. Last, but certainly not least, the number 1 sexiest referee hand signal is, in my humble opinion, the charge, a violation that is called when the offensive player commits a foul, generally by running someone over. The charge hand signal looks unmistakably like the beginning of the sprinkler dance move.
Oh, great description.
Yeah, one hand is placed on the back of the head and the other is extended out. This call really gives referees like the aforementioned Joey Crawford a golden opportunity to strut their stuff if they want to be noticed. And while it often looks ridiculous, you have to respect the dedication to the craft.
Yeah, I mean, just like the blocking foul, this one is a very emphatic one. And what's fun about it is that blocking fouls and charging fouls usually happen in the same instance. And if it's the offensive player's fault, it is a charge. And if it is the defensive player's fault, it is a block. So you have a lot of situations where you know the referee's going to make one of these two motions. You know it's going to be a big one, but you don't know which one it is. And thankfully, they look very different. So there's no confusion. And then it's a very boisterous reaction.
Right, exactly. But that's it. There you have it. The 3 funniest and 3 sexiest referee hand signals. And again, make sure to check out the Patreon for the other 4 that I didn't mention here. I hope I did a respectable job describing those as best I could via audio. But we'll certainly have some links to visual aids that will be helpful to anyone listening.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you. I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
So for my That Actually Happened, it was inspired by me watching a video that referenced this particular player, and Kelly said that she was familiar with the situation, but didn't know much about it or him. And I realized somehow we have made over 100 episodes of Horse, and we have never talked about the time Allen Iverson complained about talking about practice.
What? That's one of those where I would have just assumed that it was covered before I was part of Horse. That's amazing.
I don't think we've ever done it. I should check the Google sheet that we have that says all the past things, but I don't think we've ever done it.
Just to make sure I understand, you're not going to be talking about a game.
Not 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 a game.
You're going to be talking about Allen Iverson talking about practice.
Practice. Not a game where he goes out there and dies, but practice.
Also referenced in Ted Lasso.
So you've probably at least heard some sort of clip from this iconic rant, but let's paint the whole picture. So this event took place on May 7th, 2002. There was going to be a press conference for Allen Iverson, who is the star player of the Philadelphia 76ers, the franchise player, the best player on the team, and a very loud figure in many different ways in the NBA. Allen Iverson was an incredible player. He was an incredible player in college. He was a high draft pick. I think he was the number 1 pick overall in his draft in 1996. And he also is the reason that David Stern put the clothing ban into place where NBA players had to wear suits and stuff, which has now been eased up over time. He was the first guy to wear a shooting sleeve. He's really the guy that kind of blended hip hop and the NBA together. He's a huge cultural figure, but also he was incredible at basketball. So big figure.
And he was 5'10", maybe.
Tiny
Listed
dude.
at 6 feet, I think, but probably 5'9", 5'10". Always on the floor, always hustling. Just an amazing player to watch.
Yeah. And for folks my age growing up, we all loved Allen Iverson. Even if you didn't care for the 76ers, I loved AI. I had Allen Iverson shoes. I was a big AI guy.
I had the original Iversons.
Ooh, I think I had I3s.
The ones with like the zip up on the top?
Didn't have the zip up, but it did have insoles with Allen Iverson's face on them.
Very
so when I had
cool.
to take my shoes off for gym class in K through 8 school, people were confused of why there was a man inside my shoe. And I was like, oh, it's Allen Iverson. He's the answer, which is also one of the greatest nicknames of all time for NBA. The answer, oh, so good.
It is pretty good. But what's the question?
Who's the best player?
There you go.
Who's going to win the game? Who's going to take the shot? AI. He's the answer. Now, 2002 in May, the Sixers had just been bounced from the first round in the playoffs against Boston. The series went to Game 5. They lost. It was kind of an embarrassing loss. And it was embarrassing for them to lose in the first round because the previous year, the Sixers made it to the NBA Finals. That's where the famous Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue on the Lakers play happened. So the Sixers were a really good team, made it all the way to the finals. They didn't win the finals, but to lose in the first round just 1 year later is an embarrassing situation. So a lot of the research I did for this came from 2 separate places, one a video, one an article. I highly recommend checking out both. I'll link to both. There's a video, a beef history video by Secret Base, which gets into the beef between Larry Brown, the coach of the Sixers, and Allen Iverson, the best player. And then The Athletic did a very good oral history of the practice, where a lot of different people, reporters who were there, people who work for the team, they talked about remembering this. And then there's lots of clips. And then, of course, can't recommend enough just to watch the entire extended full thing because it's so good. It's so good.
It goes on a long time.
It really does. And it's fantastic. So May 7th, 2002. He's supposed to give a press conference. The reason that they were doing this was just kind of to address the situation. He also had won the MVP this past season. So, you know, sometimes you'll do end of season sort of press conferences after exit interviews.
Yeah, I was going
coming
to say
out.
it's like almost like a public exit interview.
Yeah. So there is a reporter named Neil Hartman who contributed to this oral history thing. And he said that he was talking to Michael Barkin, who hosted a sports talk show at the time called Daily News Live. And when Hartman saw Iverson enter for the press conference, he was talking to Barkin and he said, oh, hold on a second. He's starting right now, Michael. Here we go. And then when Iverson sat down wearing this iconic oversized white t-shirt and a white and red Boston Red Sox hat for some reason, don't understand why he was wearing this.
It was the era of just cool fitted hats. It had
Yeah.
nothing to do with who anyone liked as a team.
I guess that's true, especially now because AI now usually wears Yankee hats anytime he's out. So weird to have a Boston hat. But it's like, if you do watch a video, you'd be like, oh, I've seen a picture because this is like, besides basketball, the most iconic thing this man has ever done. Now, once he sits down at the table, apparently he mimics Hartman by saying, he's starting right now, Michael, let's go. And then that just kind of set the tone of, uh-oh.
Was he doing like the Chappelle doing a white guy voice?
They didn't clarify here in the oral history, so I don't know the tone, but at the very least, he was mimicking him. So that's just an interesting aura. It really set the stage of, uh-oh, this is going to be a spicy situation. Now, Billy King, who was the general manager of the 76ers at the time, also contributed to this oral history, and he said that it was his idea for the press conference. He said, quote, I thought it would be great. Let's have Allen talk, just saying he wants to be back and he wants to play for Larry Brown. Now, the reason that this was important is because over the course of their years together, Larry Brown and Allen Iverson had a really contentious relationship. And a lot of it did center around practice, which we'll get into later. But there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not the Sixers would fire Larry Brown, or is Larry Brown going to stay around and they're going to trade Allen Iverson? The two really butted heads a lot, and they would have this recurring thing of something would happen, they would make comments about each other in the media, and then they would reconcile once the Sixers won a couple more games. Like that was just like the regular run of it all, and this went on for years and years and years. So this, what they were trying to do here is kind of put at ease, hey, I'm sticking around, I'm going to work with Larry, we're going to come back next year, and we're not going to have a disappointing exit. Makes sense in theory. Now, the problem is that this came after an embarrassing situation, which is losing in the first round of the playoffs after being pretty good. Now, before the press conference, there was a meeting between Larry Brown, some people in the front office of the Sixers, and Allen Iverson. And even that got a little bit contentious. Larry Brown claims that Allen Iverson was late to the meeting. Everyone else in the meeting said that that was not true, that he was there on time. Now, when they had this meeting, Larry Brown was hoping to try to have like a philosophical discussion with Allen Iverson about what he wants to see out of his star player. He wants someone to be a leader in the locker room. He wants someone to pass the ball more and not be selfish, because Allen Iverson was definitely a score-first guy. It was justified because he was really fucking good at basketball, but Larry Brown was a big, kind of like if you've ever seen Hoosiers the movie, he was a big, let's get the whole team involved thing. The problem, the rest of the Sixers were not nearly as good as Allen Iverson. So you wanted a middle ground, but you have Allen Iverson who's like, I just want to score. I don't really care about practice that much. And then you have Larry Brown who is, I want everybody involved and I really like practice a lot. So just philosophically, they're not meeting eye to eye. So Larry Brown is hoping that in this meeting, that's what they'll talk about. But all Allen Iverson is concerned about is, are you going to keep me on the team or are you going to try to trade me this offseason? Like that's his MO going into the meeting is like, look, I just want to know if I'm going to be here or not so I can play my life accordingly. So that made things get a little heated because they were just kind of on different planes, if you will. But eventually both things get discussed and they assure Allen that trading him is not part of the plan. And then they try to get into some practice stuff. But naturally, Allen Iverson already doesn't want to talk about practice. They try to talk to him about it in this meeting. And then it comes up in this press conference. He's already kind of agitated. And then we have the iconic practice ? Press conference. Now, King, the GM of the Sixers, in this oral history said that it was a long meeting. People were airing out grievances. But by the end of it, everyone was able to speak their piece, say how they felt. So they thought it was in a good place. And this piece also talks about the philosophical differences. You know, even if Allen Iverson had a good game, but he didn't have a lot of assists, Larry Brown would take shots at him in the media about not passing enough. And then Allen would say something back to the reporters. So it was a very common thing. And whenever they did have practice, sometimes Allen Iverson would goof around. There is a article that was about Larry Brown in Philly Mag, and it was called The Genius, and it was all about the genius of Larry Brown and how he did these super intense, long, thorough practices. He wanted to have practice as often as possible to really keep the team sharp, but Iverson didn't like them. Here's a quote from it. Quote, but what's fascinating was Iverson during these practices. There's one moment where Brown is leading the team in push-ups, and Iverson is next to him, but he's not doing the push-ups. He's just lying on the ground as if he were doing push-ups and grunting as if he's doing push-ups, but purposefully, like just to make his guys laugh because they know he's sort of goofing on Brown. I also heard something describing as it looking like he was swimming on the floor. So he definitely didn't like to be there in practice, and he would act up a little bit sometimes during the practice. Brown is very much like, look, practice is important. I like to do it a lot. Larry Brown even would apparently set his clocks 20 minutes early so that he wouldn't miss going to practice. I've never understood the practice of making your clocks incorrect and then always having to do extra mental math. Just set alarms. I don't understand.
Right. Because also, if I did that, I would just know that I had done that, and then I would still live my life accordingly. Like, it's a very weird thing to do.
I get it in a pre-cell phone day where you can't just set alarms and reminders and all that kind of stuff, but my dad used to do it, and it was always so annoying. We had one clock in our house that was always 15 minutes fast, and then the clocks in our cars were always 5 minutes fast. And then he would talk about it like that was actually the time, if we were supposed to leave at 6. He'd say, oh, clock says 5:45. I would say, Dad, that means it's 5:30. Like, you're not fooling anyone, Joel. We know how the clocks work in this house.
Not a phone. We're talking about clocks.
So then the press conference begins. Starts off kind of talking about just normal end of year stuff, committing to being with the Sixers, being disappointed about the loss, nothing particularly dramatic. But then a reporter asks about practice. And Allen Iverson's trying to say, like, look, I may have missed a practice here and there, but to be labeled as a guy that is always missing practice, I don't agree with. And one of the first questions that gets asked in this press conference is, quote, coach said that you needed to be more conscientious in terms of practice. And that is just what ignites the whole situation, because Allen Iverson is here to talk about a lot of different things. And even in the meeting beforehand, he was here to talk about bigger picture things. And in the meeting before, and now in the press conference, all people want to do is talk about practice. And that is what makes Allen Iverson ask, I think 26 times, are we talking about practice? I think that's the official counter, but I'm not positive.
Incredible. I believe there's a version of the video, and maybe you can find a link to it, where they do have like a little counter in the corner.
Yeah. Now, there was a reporter for Comcast Sportsnet. I don't have his first name, but his last name is Hartman. And he said that he was in the office of someone named Tom Stathakes, which is a very fun last name. And before the press conference, apparently Tom asked him, quote, why don't you ask that motherfucker why he doesn't ever practice? And Hartman looked at Tom and said, it's a legitimate question. I think it's a great question. I agree with you. I'm going to ask it.
Jeez.
Now, when we talk about practice, which Allen Iverson didn't want them to talk about during this day, practicing in the late 90s, early 2000s is very different than what happens now in the 2020s for practice. It's funny because this is one of those things that has aged very well in terms of Allen Iverson's favor, because now NBA teams don't practice either as much or as intensely or both. What you'll have more often now is shoot-arounds, where you work on individual things, or you go through plays at like a slower motion, or you'll do some defensive scheming, or you'll watch video and talk about things you can do differently or repeat, etc. That's kind of the approach now, because these guys play so many games. You want them to be well rested. You don't want people to be tired or get injured during practice. So usually before the season, intense practice. During extended breaks, maybe. But if you've got a lot of games going on, you're not going to have a lot of practicing. It's just a shift in how the NBA has been approached, because these guys are really giving it their all on their court. You don't want them to be tired because of practice.
Right.
So it's funny looking at this situation now, because if Allen Iverson was playing in today's NBA, this never would have happened, because it would have been more online for what his approach was, which is, I'll bust my ass and try to play all 48 minutes of every game, but I'm not going to waste my energy during practice.
Yes, and I know it's become kind of a running joke that we always make baseball references, but there is always this collision of old school versus new school approach, right? And that's where it becomes an issue. Like, there are guys in baseball who are very old school managers who came up during a time where we all act a certain way and we do this and we do that. And they've got people taking 2 hours of batting practice on a day that's 105 degrees. And then the team gets shut out and everyone's like, oh, I wonder why that happened. Because they didn't need to be out there doing that. There aren't these rules anymore that you have to do things a certain way. And I think it was interesting for anyone who watched The Last Dance about the Chicago Bulls in the 97-98 season, that one of the most genius elements of Phil Jackson was knowing how to manage Dennis Rodman, right? And it seems like Larry Brown, during his tenure with the Sixers, and he is a great coach for sure, didn't necessarily know how to mesh with Allen Iverson, because Iverson did have a kind of interesting personality, and he wasn't going to do things the conventional way, but he was also arguably the best player in basketball for a stretch there.
I agree. And if you do watch that beef history video, you see later on that both Allen Iverson and Larry Brown now are in a good place, and they have reflected on the fact that they butted heads. They should have worked it out better, but they were both being immature about the situation. But Larry Brown does have a point about practice, because, it can help make your teammates better, where if the other people on your team have to guard you and you're one of the best players ever. They're going to get better. You can get more familiar with people. You can find chemistry stuff. There are merits to practice. But to see Allen Iverson's perspective, you can still get those merits without going super intense. And Larry Brown really liked super intense practices. So naturally, Allen Iverson enjoyed not attending those practices.
Right.
Sometimes, though, it would get a little bit less about me being tired and more about me wanting to have a good time. There was a time where he missed a practice, or he called in sick to a practice because they were playing against the Miami Heat, and he went out, and then he called in saying he was sick the next day. And then I think a reporter asked him about it, and he said something to the effect of, "We're here in Miami. You think I'm not going to go out?"
It's a fair point.
Fair point. So after a couple of people asking him about practice, this is where the most iconic clip from this starts. And that's what really kicks this whole thing off.
We sitting here, I supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that?
It's so good. The delivery is so good. Even if you don't agree with anything Allen Iverson is saying, his delivery, this entire interview, press conference, whatever, it's top notch. Like, actors cannot replicate this.
Yeah, and I don't know that it was intentional, but what it comes down to fundamentally is him being like, you're going to waste my time with this stupid question. I'm going to waste all of your time by drawing this out for as long as I possibly can.
Yes, and he truly does draw it out because he keeps saying these things of not the game, practice, and people start laughing because it is genuinely funny.
Yeah, it's very funny.
The laughter kind of eggs it on, and even by the end of it, he's laughing too. And it's this weird situation when you watch it of, yes, he was angry, but now he's laughing. What emotion should I feel? I don't know even to this day, but it is so captivating. It is incredibly captivating television because he's even extending it by having back and forths with the reporters. It's not like you'll see now with some players like Russell Westbrook, where they will throw ridiculous questions to the side or say next question. Allen Iverson really wants to get in about how ridiculous he thinks this line of questioning is.
It has to be up there with the all-time great press conferences in any sport ever.
Mm-hmm. He keeps going back and forth. He's asking people, you see me play, right? You see me put in all my effort, right? And they're agreeing with him. And then they're trying to have back and forth. One reporter says something to the effect of, the merits of practice about how it can help make your teammates better. And Allen Iverson says, which is my favorite quote. I do not agree with it because I do think practice does help make your teammates better. But Allen Iverson's quote is so good. Here's the clip.
How the hell can I make my teammates better by practicing? I make them... They're supposed to be used to playing with me anyway.
It's so funny. The delivery is so good. It is unmatched. Oh, it's so funny.
It's the best. It is.
It is truly, truly the best. Now, there's another reporter, last name Platt, who in this oral history talks about the how can I make my teammates better. He said, quote, well, because like Larry Hughes having to check you is going to make him better. But Eric Snow just had a series where he shot like 30% from the floor. And I'm sitting there as a fan, not a reporter, thinking, why the fuck are we talking about practice when Eric Snow can't hit an open 5-footer? Like, that's what we should be talking about. So even some of the reporters are like, there's bigger picture things to discuss. There's a guy who's supposed to be the second best player on the Sixers at the time, Eric Snow, a very good shooter, shot 32% for a series. Overall, that's alarmingly terrible for someone who's supposed to be one of your best players. So even some of the reporters are like, look, Allen has a point.
Now, do you happen to know, and you don't need to look this up if you don't, did Iverson have a good series? Were his stats good in that series?
I believe it was your classic Allen Iverson where he would have some games where he didn't shoot the most efficiently, but still scored a lot of points.
Yeah.
But I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think it was a famously bad Allen Iverson series by any means. But I do know Game 5 in particular, which had them get eliminated, was an embarrassing loss. So kind of bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, because I feel like this sort of stuff usually comes up more if the person doesn't play well. Like I remember there's a famous thing where Vince Carter left before a Game 7 for the Raptors, I believe actually against the 76ers, to graduate from college, which is something that was important to him and to his family. But he like flew all the way back to UNC to graduate and walk for graduation, then flew all the way back. And then he missed what would have been a game-winning shot in Game 7. And everyone criticized him like, oh, why did you do that? Why did you travel? Like, you should have thought of the team first, which I don't necessarily agree with. But
no, it's a job.
Right.
It's a job.
Right.
like when people get mad at players for missing games because of the birth of their children, it's the most ridiculous thing. There is so much more to life than one game of basketball, even if it's game 7 of the finals. Like, that's your child, that your significant other. Like, come on. I have no tolerance for fans that get upset about that kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Now, because this starts to draw out and get more and more off the rails, instead of it just being a regular press conference where people are taking notes and are going to make some articles based off of it, it goes to live television. The ending of this gets broadcast live because it's so unique and absurd. And there's people quoted in this oral history that work for television programs. He said something to the effect of, I was getting ready for dinner and I come out from getting dressed and my phone had 30 missed calls from my boss. And then they turn on the TV to see what's going on. And it just becomes one of those, are you watching this moments? And then another person working for the television network thought, he might drop an F-bomb. And the other people are saying, he's live. We're going to just have to eat the fine if it happens. This is incredibly captivating television. We can't not show this.
Wow.
So all of this happens. And then the end of this video takes a turn. And we start to learn a little bit more, which gives me more empathy for Allen Iverson. And I think that's a good point for us to bring up here. Allen Iverson goes on to say the following. I'm upset for one reason, man, because I'm in here. I lost my best friend. I lost him and I lost this year. Everything is going downhill for me, far as just that, as far as my life. And then I'm dealing with this right here. So what happened was Allen Iverson's longtime friend, Rashawn Langford, was shot and killed in Virginia, where they grew up, in October of 2001. So right at the beginning of the season. And this kind of shows that even beyond there are bigger basketball things to discuss here. There are bigger picture things that are on my mind right now. And we're talking about practice for the season, whatever. We're talking about practice when I just have so much more on my mind. I can't be bothered with it. And I'm glad he said this at the press conference. It's a vulnerable moment. And in 2002, athletes were not very vulnerable people publicly.
Yeah, it's a great point.
It's really tough. And a lot of people that they talked to in The Athletic article, they all confirmed that throughout the whole season, this really weighed on Allen Iverson, just one of his best friends, someone who really helped him growing up. Him and Allen would play basketball together. For a lot of people, this is an escape from harsh upbringings, and basketball courts or football fields, whatever it is, that's a safe place in many different regards. And to lose him just really hit Allen Iverson really hard. And he brought that up. And this has been confirmed by a lot of different people. There's a Stephen A. Smith video where they brought him on to ESPN because it was like the 20th anniversary of the Allen Iverson famous practice thing. And it's a really interesting watch. And we'll put a link to it because ESPN kind of tees it up as remember this funny thing? And right off the bat, Stephen A. Smith goes, look, he was having a really bad time because of the loss of his friend. And it really changes the tone of the segment, but it does put in perspective. You never know what people are going through. You never, ever know. And I'm glad that Allen was able to talk about this and wasn't afraid to do so. That's a tough situation to go through at all. I'm sure it affected his performance in the season and in the playoffs. And at the end of the day, he's a guy who faced a lot of criticism, and it can't be easy, especially when, just like we're saying with family stuff or graduation or whatever, it's bigger than basketball a lot of times. And that was the case here.
Yeah. And while I do understand Larry Brown's desire to have a person who leads by example, and I do think that can be important, I absolutely agree that Allen Iverson is someone who, if you watch tape from literally any game he ever played in the NBA, I don't think there was ever a moment where he wasn't hustling and giving it his all constantly.
Right. And that is the big point that Allen Iverson was trying to make in this press conference when he was asking reporters and stuff. You see the way I play the game. You see that I go out and I give it my all. Larry Brown even quoted saying, Allen Iverson always wanted to play every minute of every game. It was hard to get him to sit for 6 total minutes out of the 48 in a game. So he would always put so much effort into the games that practice just wasn't something that was on his mind, because he thought, I would much rather give it my all in the game than tire myself out because of practice or get hurt because of practice. So it was a bit of a disconnect. I would hope, and I think the oral history helps. I think the beef history video helps. I'm glad that as time has gone on, there's been more context about some of the other factors that contributed to it. Because for a long time, it was just kind of one of those, oh, look how entitled he is. And like, yeah, he was being kind of a dick. Like, just show up to practice. But there's other stuff, there's other factors. it's also just really funny. And I appreciate that as time has gone on, we now have a better understanding of athletes' perspectives. And I think as media and fans, like people are treating athletes more and more like humans. And I'm glad that the practice thing, we can now kind of look back and laugh on it. And we can also kind of look back and understand that it was more of a complex situation and not just Allen Iverson being a little bit of a diva. And even if he was being a little bit of a diva, it was so funny. It's so good. It's an all-timer. It's been remixed into music and all that kind of stuff. It's great. I recommend checking out all the links in regards to it. It's an iconic moment. I love it to death. And I think now we can finally say, don't worry, Allen Iverson, no longer will we be talking about practice.
That was great. And truly, I'm still floored that this is the first time we've discussed it on the show, but I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Horror Sources, hosted by Adam Amawala and Mike Schubert. Our editor for this episode is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campomanes. The art is by Allison Wakeman, and the website is by Kelly Schubert.
Thank you to our producer-level patrons, Polly Burge, Kendra Hadley, Salvatore Testa, Trust the Process, Siobhan Ellsbury, He Sells Seashells, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Long-Suffering Timberwolves Fan, Roast Beef Debris, Kate the Conqueror, Basketball is Life 2, Mikhail Loves Allison, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Borgelli, Weird Questions, Mitch Chrysler, Wardell Curry II for 3,
Explosion.
Ooh, Nicole Arsenault, Lobster Bisquet, and now, hi, Trish, and hello, Trish, whoever and wherever you may be. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horse Hoops, and follow us on Twitter at Horse_Hoops because
Horse Hoops was tweeting too much about practice. Allen Iverson got them banned.
I had a feeling that's where you were going, and I couldn't agree more. Go to our website, horsehoops.com, for links to some of the fun stuff we talked about today, including Joey Crawford making the game about him for reasons that are not entirely clear, more of the practice content, maybe even with a counter to see exactly how many times Iverson said it, and all that good stuff.
If you want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/horsehoops. We really appreciate everyone who does support, even if it's just for like one episode. That's fine. We appreciate any support we get. You get access to a lot of bonus content. You get physical stuff like stickers and jerseys, lots of fun things, and we could even say your name every episode. So much fun content over there. And if you go to horsehoops.com/merch, you can get physical merch like Sup Nerds It's Basketball shirts. You can get digital merch. Lots of fun stuff going on. You can also, if you want to support us individually, Adam's got a very good stand-up album out that you should check out. You can buy it on iTunes and other places. I've got live shows coming up for my other podcasts. Support the Horse Boys.
Yeah, good call. I also have some live shows coming up. So if you are in the Chicago area, I'll be headlining Zany's Rosemont, which is the other Zany's, not the one that I recorded the album at, which is in Old Town, but it's Rosemont, which is like a suburb of Chicago. I'll be there September 23rd and 24th. I'll also be in Atlanta. Maybe Teal can come out again. I'll be headlining a show in Atlanta on October 13th. I'll be in Asheville on October 14th. But if you follow me, you'll see all those dates for all that stuff. And check out Shubes' stuff as well for the live shows.
Yeah, I've got shows half Potterless, half TNO coming up in Philly and also in Portland and Dallas and Salt Lake City. The Philly show will be streamed, so that's very fun. So yeah, check those out. You can go to potterlesspodcast.com/live. It's got all that good stuff. But we're going to conclude this episode as we always do by putting our hands in the middle and saying something on the count of 3. I'm thinking we will into existence a Storm Sky final. So maybe we say,
how about the sky's looking stormy?
Let's go. I like that a lot. The sky's looking stormy on 3 to try to will it into existence. 1, 2, 3.
The sky is looking stormy.
It'd be really
'Twas a
good.
stormy night.
Oh, I hope.